This is Alysa McCall and BJ Kirschhoffer with Polar Bears International, and we are on the Frontiers North Adventure Tundra Buggy 1 with the Tundra Buggy Polar Bear Cam right now. And I think you've been watching a polar bear that's sleeping just out behind us. We've been roaming around all day. BJ's been fixing stuff, which maybe you can tell people about. And today we're going to talk to you a bit about moms and cubs, but we'd also love any question you have, so please put those in the explore.org comment section or on the Facebook page, so that would be great. BJ, what were you fixing this morning?
Well, we've been struggling with some of the audio on some of the cameras here. I want to try to fix that up so folks can hear what's happening out here, which actually isn't a lot other than wind. You know, the bears aren't making a lot of noise, unless maybe they get pretty agitated, exercised, or whatever you want to call it. You know, maybe if they were fighting or something, but really, we don't hear much of that. We hear just mostly blowing wind.
Yeah. And if any of you saw that snowy owl this morning, that was a really neat interaction. The polar bears were crossing by it, and then eventually a polar bear walked up behind it, and I think they both were pretty startled. But snowy owls don't really make, I've never heard them make noise up here. I'm sure they do occasionally. But yeah, it is quite a quiet place. It's very meditative in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we're not rolling around. And today's a nice meditative day for BJ and I. So as many of you know, we are usually pretty much every day out here bringing out guests, which is a ton of fun. We work with a lot of different scientists. We've got a great team out here, and we pack this little buggy one with a lot of fantastic people. We have a really good time, but today it's just the two of us.
Yeah, we sent them all into town.
Yeah.
So we could get some work done.
I don't know how we worked that out, but yeah, no, it's been good. So
it's not often we have a quiet day out here.
No.
So yeah, just trying to get caught up on a few of the things that we've been struggling with, and might even get a couple emails answered.
Yeah.
Whoa,
that would be good to catch up on that. We're drinking our coffee and have some leftover Halloween candy from last night. I hope you all had a great Halloween. We did on the lodge. The staff dressed up like let's see, Tara, the sous chef, was a cow. Emily, the lodge, everything. She does everything. She was bacon. It was awesome.
A strip of bacon.
Yeah, a strip of bacon.
Yeah.
We had a good night out here. Yeah, it's lots of fun out on the lodge. We're, surrounded by polar bears. We had a couple of polar bears after dinner visiting us, and a lot of Halloween candy and decorations, and
Not a lot of trick-or-treaters pop by the lodge.
No, that's true. The polar bears might have thought they could trick us and get a treat, but
didn't happen.
They don't get anything out here. Yeah, we just keep to ourselves and watch them, and I'm sure they would like a treat. So, I
didn't hear how Halloween went in town.
Oh, I didn't either.
We talked a little bit about that yesterday. I don't know if folks tuned in, but if you weren't with us yesterday, it's a huge event in Churchill. If you can imagine a bunch of kids in costumes running around after dark while there's polar bears circling the town. It's a challenge to make sure that the kids stay safe. So all the adults, or not a big group of adults, make a perimeter around the town, and they shine their headlights or flashlights or whatever they have, and everybody has their cell phone, or some have radios at the ready, just in case they see something. And if so, they'll radio or call, and Polar Bear Alert comes and takes care of it. But that perimeter around town makes sure the kids can go trick-or-treating door to door just like anywhere else, without fear of becoming a snack.
My biggest fear in Halloween used to be my brother stealing my Reese's Pieces, and so having to deal with polar bears while you're trick-or-treating is a little more serious.
It's a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's a whole nother level, but yeah, the town sure takes care of its kids here. But it's an interesting place to be at this time of year, so of course it is polar bear season, and the reason we're able to be here around polar bears, and the reason that we have to have patrols to keep the kids safe, is because the polar bears are moving through this area right now. Polar bears want to be out on the sea ice, but these bears live in an area that has annual sea ice. So sea ice on Hudson Bay freezes completely over in the winter and then melts completely in the summer. And when it melts, the bears come on shore and they hang out for a few months. But the sea ice, as you can see, things are turning back to winter. It's getting white, it's getting cold, and that means the sea ice will be reappearing hopefully in the next month or two. And the bears know this. So they're slowly migrating to the coast. We're seeing them congregate, and they're passing through this area, and it gives us a great opportunity to view them. It's not quite the same as the Katmai brown bear cam, where the same bears are, first of all, pretty identifiable, and second of all, they're there for days at a time eating. It's a fantastic place to watch the same bears day after day. Here we really are seeing more of a migration through, and it can be harder to identify individual polar bears. Sometimes they stick around for a couple days, and sometimes we see them once and never again. but it's still a neat place. Maybe, you know, one day we'll be able to view more polar bears when they're having their feast in the spring, but right now, during that time, the main time that polar bears do eat on the sea ice, it's really hard for us to see that. So we watch them here when they're fasting. And these guys are hungry. They're, you know, waiting to get back on the sea ice to eat their seal dinner. They smell some things out here. Well, we saw them the other day. A polar bear caught a meadow vole. We see them eating kelp, but it's really not enough calories for a polar bear. They really do need the seal fat. So that's what they're hanging out, getting ready for some seals. So
it takes a lot of energy to build a giant animal like a polar bear.
Yeah, they are a super giant animal, and it takes a lot of energy to reproduce little cubs, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So moms and cubs are pretty cool.
They are cool.
Yeah, I think whenever we're talking about polar bears, people really like the mom and cub stuff. I think we all do.
Yeah.
And we can see, you know, seeing a giant male out here is so great, but whenever you see a mom with a couple cubs, it's everyone stops. It's pretty nice. Yeah.
It is cool.
It's pretty nice. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the type of research that we do, or BJ and I have done, what Polar Bears International does for moms and cubs, and then answer your questions either about moms and cubs or about anything we're doing out here. We can even answer questions about the buggy or anything going on. But I wanted to maybe I'll start with my work. I've done a little bit here, and then I'm going to ask BJ about his work kind of in other parts of the world, and we'll tie it all together. So in western Hudson Bay, where we are right now, these bears, these are the best studied polar bears in the world. And that includes studying moms and cubs. And so for the last, 30 years, over 30 years, there has been a program monitoring moms and cubs that are emerging from their dens after they give birth. So females in this area, they mate in the spring. But they don't actually get pregnant right away in the spring. Polar bears have what we call delayed implantation. So even if they have a fertilized egg after mating, it doesn't really implant in them. They're not technically pregnant until they come on land, and then later that fall, if their body is healthy enough, the body, I'm sure through a series of hormone interactions, decides, okay, we can implant now, let's get pregnant. You know, this thing's been floating there for a while, let's take it on. And then they're pregnant, and then they'll enter their den in the fall. So right now we are very unlikely to see any pregnant females. They should all be safe in a den far away from here in the main denning area. They'll give birth do give all polar bears a birthday of January 1st to make it easier on the biologists. We can't really assign every individual polar bear a birthday. That would be too hard. But the mom will give birth around then, and then she will emerge from the den in this area in about late February, early March on average. And they will hang out a little bit at their den, and then they'll walk to the sea ice. And here it takes them about a week on average, 6 or 7 days on average, to go from their den to the ice with their brand new little cubs with their tiny little legs. But they make that big walk, and they time it so that they're getting to the sea ice right about when the seals are pupping on the sea ice. Smorgasbord of easier food to eat. And so if we can track females in this area, as we've done for decades, if we can understand their body condition when they exit the den and what the cubs look like, and the number of cubs even, it gives us a really good idea over a long period of time what's going on with moms and cubs. Because of course they are, as very important as males are in the population, it is really the moms and cubs that are adding to the population and making sure that population keeps going.
It wouldn't really take that many males to keep the population going. It's really the females, productive females, that make it all go. It
really is, yeah. We need some males, a bit of genetic diversity. It's good to have a few males out there, but it's the females that have to raise those cubs up to be polar bears. So that's a broad overview of the research here. It involves helicopter capture, measuring directly, and then going on. But BJ has done some fantastic work in a couple other countries looking at moms and cubs in a different way. Maybe BJ, you could talk to people about that project.
Sure. So we set up, or helped set up, cameras on polar bear dens. So really not in the polar bear den, not in the snow structure itself, but about 100 meters in Alaska in front of the den, and over in Svalbard where we're doing work, we're as much as a half kilometer, so 500 meters away from the den. Cool. And we zoom in on the den structure itself, and then we hit the record button and leave. We really don't want to disturb that whole process. We want to observe what's happening. We want to count how many cubs there are. We want to see how big they are relative to each other, relative to mom. And see how many cubs maybe exit the den versus leave the den with mom. See if there's any cubs that are lost kind of in that short period before kind of when they're at the den site. So we're looking at a bunch of different things, but you know, we deploy these cameras and we take off, let them do the hard work, and anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks later, we'll go back and pick the cameras up and review the footage and see what we see. So we actually brought some of that today.
Yeah,
some of the stuff is a little blurry. Let's go with a wide shot first, so you can see here. This is a female. This was a collared female, and you can see it's a little small on the screen. You can see there's a wee little cub there. This would have been early March, Alysa, so this cub would have been just 2 months old, right? Just short of 2 months old.
Pretty much, yeah.
And probably about 20 pounds or so. We didn't weigh it. Again, this is a pretty non-invasive project here, so we weren't trying to capture the cubs or the mother at this time and do any of that. We just want to see what's going on. You can see that she is wearing a collar. And if you look just above the mother's head right now, there's a bit of jumbled snow there. That is the den structure itself. It's on the leeward side of a small grassy hill adjacent to a river in northern Alaska. And so she would have entered that den in December, like Alysa said, late November, early December, and hung out in there until early March with the little 20-pound cub. So it's a pretty neat process. So I guess that video ended. There's another one here. We'll just pick that up. You can see they do a lot of rolling around.
Must feel good.
Yeah, after being stuck in a snow hole like that, probably feels good to stretch the legs and
they're there for
do some shaking.
Probably pretty hungry. It's been quite a few months. In this area, the females can go for up to 8 months without eating. If you think about when they come off the ice, go into their den, give birth, and nurse, and by the time they get out again, it's been 2/3 of a year. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Let's look at another one here. So this is also northern Alaska.
I love this one.
This one's cute. Now again, you see the second one there coming down the hill, and if we were to watch this long enough, I'm not sure we can fast forward, but there's actually a third cub in the snow hole there that's waiting to come out. It's a kind of a slower cub there. So anyways, mom, you can see again rolling around. There's a lot of this behavior that we see at the den site, cleaning the fur. Oh, and here comes the third one. We were pretty excited when we watched this clip for the first time because we thought, oh, one cub, that's nice, and then 2 cubs, that's great. And then you can see a third one came out, and we were pretty excited for this family group here. So
that is so cool.
And mom is rolling.
Oh, yeah. And, that's even similar behavior to what we saw yesterday on the camps here. We do believe a polar bear got a seal out here, which is pretty rare, but it does happen occasionally if a seal gets stranded. Got a seal just out here on Polar Bear Point, and when it was done with it, it had bloody fur, and how did it clean? It's rubbed in the snow.
Rolled in the snow.
It's an ice bath.
Yeah, totally.
It's an ice bath. They love it. It cleans their fur off. But that footage is just incredible. And, cubs are so small when they're born. So polar bears are the biggest of the bear species. They can get bigger than any other bear. But they're the size of a butter packet. They're 1.5 pounds or so when they're born. Little hairless, rat-looking things. And within just a couple months, so by the time you see them emerge, all cute and fuzzy like that, it's only been a couple months. So they've grown at quite a rate, and a lot of that has to do with their mother's milk. So polar bears have the fattiest milk that's found on land. It's about 31% milk fat. And if you compare that to milk we drink, it's maybe like 2% or 1% or something. Seals and whales and marine mammals like that have even fattier milk, so I think the record is something around 60%. But for polar bears, for a terrestrial, well, they're a marine mammal, but for an animal that makes some of its living above the surface of the sea, it's crazy fatty. And it takes a lot of calories to produce milk like that, you can imagine.
So that's why mom has to be really healthy when she goes into the den.
Super fat.
Yeah, in order to make that so she can make milk for the cubs.
Absolutely, yeah. We see females get huge before they enter their den. It looks like sometimes they're wearing fat pajamas, we call it. They just like jiggle when they walk. That's a really good thing. Polar bears handle fat differently than humans do, and there's even researchers that are looking at kind of the genetic basis for how they're able to pack on all that body fat and be healthy, and their heart is protected. It doesn't have the same impacts on their bodies that human fat would have, So it's pretty neat stuff to look at. And we know that polar bear moms do have kind of a lower threshold of the weight they can be before they reproduce. So same with humans. You have to be above a certain weight before your body's really healthy enough to give birth to cubs. And for female polar bears, that seems to be around 420 pounds. So once you go below 420 pounds, or I think it's 189 kilograms, you probably aren't going to be able to reproduce. So the females have to be a lot bigger than that. And hopefully they're more like 600, 700, 800 pounds even for a female to give birth to a lot of cubs. So it's really cool stuff. Maybe we can take a few questions and then circle back to the mom and cub thing and
definitely
see what else we have going on here. So why do the bears look so skinny this time of year? Yeah, really good question. So these bears this year are looking pretty well. We've seen a couple skinny ones, but it was a later ice breakup this year, which is great. We are seeing more and more years of early ice breakup, but of course we're still going to have occasional years that the ice breaks up more on time. So we are seeing some good bears this year, but they are looking, there are some thin ones out here, and that's really because they haven't eaten since about July. So these bears out here, they need seal fat, and they haven't had seal fat. Well, the vast majority of them haven't since they came off the sea ice in July, and so they're losing about 1 kilogram a day, and you know that adds up over time. So they really
I haven't eaten since breakfast, and I'm hungry.
We're ready for lunch after this. We're digging into our lunch, and it's going to be delicious, and I'm already ready for it, and I just had a big breakfast. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine going that long without food.
Yeah,
it's pretty remarkable that they're able to do that.
Yeah, and so you can see why they would be losing weight and why we really want the sea ice to freeze up again as soon as possible. We have seen changes with that. Polar bears are on land in this area about a month longer than they were in the 80s, and that adds up. If they're losing about 1 kilogram a day, then you can imagine, you know, an extra 28 days or so makes a difference. And so we'd like to not see that trend continue, which we're working on doing. Oh, we got lots of questions. When do they hibernate? So polar bears never technically hibernate. You can talk to biologists about the actual definition of hibernation. Females, of course, do enter their dens with their cubs, but even that isn't really thought of as real hibernation or true hibernation. And polar bears on the land here go through no decreases in metabolism that we would consider hibernation. So they really are using energy normally. They can't decrease it down to a level to save energy like we hoped that they could, but research shows that they're really not doing that. So
yeah, so black bears and brown bears would enter a den because there isn't a lot of food available in the fall and the winter for those guys, where polar bears, you know, there's food available in the winter, and so they're not going to crawl into a den and go hide when the best eating could be could be had. And
a lot of polar bears, so we're lucky here, we can see polar bears on land. A lot of polar bears never come on land in their life, or they don't want to, and so historically, while there would be seasons of much less food, you know, they'd still be out on the ice looking for food to hunt, and so they, you know, didn't really need to hibernate. So yeah, they're a different bear.
Totally
different bear. The sea bear is a different bear for sure. Sometimes it's called the sea bear. Okay, have you seen any Arctic foxes or wolverine? There was a wolverine spotted a couple weeks ago. I didn't see it. Did you see it?
I missed it.
We would love to see it out here.
Several years ago on the cam, we had a wolverine run right underneath Buggy One. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite days out here, and it like ran up to a polar bear and gave it like that.
Gave it a little look, and polar bear stood up like, "What is this thing?" And then the polar bear just wandered off.
Yeah, and the wolverine took off. And so if we see one, I promise we're going to let everyone know it's going to get on the cam.
Yeah. We haven't seen any Arctic foxes
tons of red foxes, Arctic foxes. And red foxes outcompete Arctic foxes, so that might be why we're not seeing the Arctics.
Yeah, the black fox that we've seen running around there, it's actually a silver fox. So it is a red fox, but it's they call it a silver fox. The fur looks a little bit black, but on the edge of the fur, it's silvery. So we've seen tons of those.
Yeah.
Two for sure, and I've heard just down the coast here there's actually an active fox den, so that's probably why we're seeing so many of them. And maybe one day we can go there and park on the fox den and see if we can check it out.
Yeah, see if they're coming in and out. Yeah, it's a great small mammal year. So there's been many years I've been out here, and you wouldn't see any lemmings or voles, or just you wouldn't see them because there's few of them and they're hiding or whatever. But this year
they're quite little.
They're so little, and this year they're running. I mean, there's not a ton of them. Don't get me wrong, but we're seeing them run across the snow. We're seeing foxes catch them. We saw the bear eat one. I mean, it's just a crazy small mammal year, which is really good. That's probably why we're seeing the snow whales and so many red foxes around. It's cool stuff.
Yonar is one of the folks we had on the buggy here. He's a big small mammal guy. That's where he got his start. And Alysa, you started with small mammals as well, huh?
Yeah, my first wildlife work I ever did was studying deer mice in British Columbia, and I loved it. We tracked them with little radio collars and, you know, watched their population over time, and I really loved mice. And I just kind of did a big old giant leap to polar bears, which worked out great, but I still have a soft spot for the small things for sure. Yeah, they're super cute. It was fun talking to Jan about them. You know, yeah, he knows a lot. This is a cool question, and BJ can probably answer this even better. Do you guys experience any problems because the train isn't running?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and definitely.
Totally.
Part of that is we really have to plan ahead now on what we want to have here in Churchill. Really the only way things are coming in and out at this point, and probably through the rest of the winter, is through aircraft. There's a chance they are talking about a winter road, so they would pack down snow and drive tundra vehicles or over snow vehicles from a town called Gillam up to Churchill, or potentially Thompson up to Churchill. So that's how goods are going to move up back and forth between now and really when the next boats start coming in. Yeah. Which I don't even know when the first boats start coming. Like probably in July.
July, yeah, after the sea ice is gone.
Yeah, the sea ice has to empty all out of Hudson Bay.
Yeah, July or August then.
Yeah, so definitely getting the equipment that we use up here is pretty difficult when the train isn't running. So we have to plan ahead for that. Also, our costs are a little bit higher as well, just because now our food that we eat comes in on a plane instead of on the train. We used to put weekly food orders in, and that would be all packaged up on pallets and put on a train and sent to Churchill, and so it would take a week or whatever, but the train would take good care of it. Now we're waiting for the plane to bring it in, and that turns out the schedule, stuff gets bumped around. It's not one big pallet that we get, instead of it's smaller boxes, and so you'll get 3 or 4 things of something else, and then you may get one of your neighbors' items that they ordered, and some of your stuff's across town.
Luckily, everyone kind of knows each other.
Yeah, totally. But we're not the only ones struggling with this. Some of our friends in town that maybe run restaurants, their ketchup's going to the neighbor, and they're getting somebody else's onions. So it's made it kind of time-consuming and expensive for sure.
And it's tough with hazardous goods. So things like fuel, I mean, that you can't necessarily just fly that up. And even smaller safety things like bear spray. It's important to us that we're carrying bear spray with us when we're in bear country, and you can't just fly that up on an airplane.
We'll have to wait until next summer before we can get our next load of bear spray in. So.
Yeah, we have to make sure we keep the ones we have and don't lose them anywhere, which, I mean, we're good at doing that, but yeah, there's only so much to go around. So, yeah, it's had quite an effect on the town, and we're really hoping that the train's back up and running next year one way or another, and hopefully that ice road helps.
Yeah, we're kind of fortunate. I mean, we just see just a short piece of the entire year. Also, we're here in kind of the most accessible time of the year. The boats are still running, and so anything that we would have ordered and planned ahead for it would be arriving now. Yeah. But folks that live in Churchill now, they're going to have to go through the long winter and only have stuff flown in, and that's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
That is going to be tough. Yeah, we wish everyone the best and support as much as we can, but it's going to be hard.
Yeah, hopefully they can get this figured out and the train line repaired.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into the next question. When is the best time to come? It depends what you want to see.
Totally. Yeah. There's a lot going on in Churchill.
Yeah, a lot year-round, which people might not know. So.
And Explore captures just about all of it on the cameras.
Yeah, you should just watch the Explore camera. Totally. For a year, and then choose your favorite time. Yeah.
So we're about halfway through bear season right now, so if you want to see polar bears, end of October through the end of November is bear season. It's kind of peak polar bear season. Then after that, the bay freezes and the bears disappear. But what that allows for is it takes a lot of the moisture out of the air, and the skies clear up. And so then it's peak northern lights season. Also, it's dark a lot.
Yeah.
There's in the shortest day year in Churchill, it's 5 hours and 15 minutes roughly of daylight. So tons of opportunity to see the northern lights if you're into that.
Beautiful.
Of course, Explore has a cam for that. And then if you're into ice fishing, perhaps March and April are a great time to come to Churchill. It's getting a little brighter outside.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad. And then, of course, for beluga whales and the potential to see polar bears,
Yep.
definitely wildflowers.
Birds, migrating birds. Lots of rare species come through here
Yep.
in the summer.
Yep. So all that stuff, that's summertime in Churchill.
Yeah, July, August, September, pretty spectacular. You have to be a little wary of the bugs, but seeing thousands of belugas and a rare bird and maybe a polar bear makes up for that too.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
yeah, it's pretty special. So yeah, Churchill's like the place to be any time of the year, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots going on.
Yeah. How long do cubs stay with mom?
That's an awesome question.
So cubs tend to stay with their mom for just over 2 years. So when they are born, they'll stay with her that first year, and we call them cubs of the year or coys. The second year they're with mom, they're called a yearling. And then they'll turn 2, and then they have a couple more months until the spring. And that's usually when mom will come back into heat. She'll be ready to mate again, and that's about the time that those cubs will go on their own, after which we call them subadults. So they're kind of like the teenager bears. And when they're 5 years old, so between the ages of about 2.5 and 5, they're subadults. And after 5, they're adults. And females usually start reproducing around that time, around 5 or 6. And males will try, but for males it's very much a game of how big you are and how much you can compete with the other males out there. So males really reach their peak reproductive phase around 14 to 16 years old. But I'm sure they're out there, trying to find the ladies for sure. Mm-hmm. What is the average cub a mom gives birth to? 1 or 2? So usually 1 or 2 is pretty common. That's what we would expect to see. But we do see triplets. As you saw from BJ's clip, there are triplets out here. It's hard to, it happens. It's hard to raise 3 healthy cubs in certain areas right now because of the hunting. Of course, you can imagine how many seals you'd have to catch. Females with cubs do need to get more energy. They are feeding themselves and their babies. It's a lot of work, so having 3 can be a lot more work, but it happens. We often expect that. Well, in the triplets I've seen, there is usually a runt that's pretty obvious, and we don't really expect the runt to make it to adulthood. And in fact, cub mortality is pretty high anyway, and that's why we believe we're seeing more singles and doubles, at least in this area for sure. We've seen fewer triplets now than there used to be.
Yeah, we caught a glimpse of triplets. I think last year was the last time we've seen triplets. And before that, I can't even remember the last time we saw them here from the buggies. Now, I'm sure others have witnessed them, but it's been a while.
And it's cool. There's some work that did the genetics of family groups caught together, and occasionally polar bear moms will adopt a cub and add one to their litter. And whether that is really on purpose or the cub might be somehow related or what, we don't know why, but that's a possibility, that she adds a cub to her group, or so which is a pretty neat thing that they do.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, the DNA stuff is teaching us a lot about polar bears. Very cool. Yeah. All right, so I'm just looking out this window for a bear. I think we still have our sleeper out back. Sleepy bear. He is a snoozer.
Afternoon nap for that bear.
All right, what do mothers eat during the time that they are denning? That is a big old nothing. They really are eating nothing while they're denning. Like, it's just crazy. They're going so long without food, going into their dens, giving birth, nursing with this fatty milk. And just not eating. They're just surviving on their own body fat. Crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, unbelievable. So very neat adaptation that allows them to do that, but they're really pushing the limits of their body. Do the females leave the den for hunting? So they, not in the sense that they would make day trips to hunt at all, but when they do finally leave their den, when they break free, like BJ's video showed, after that point, once their cubs have their little legs working properly and are ready to go, then they will go to the sea ice to start hunting. So it's really, once they're out of their den, they're basically saying, okay, I'm ready to hunt soon, and then they go. They're not entering in and out of the den for periods of time. And yeah, I'm sure once they hit, the sea ice, they're ready to eat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then, again, that's why that timing for the naive young seals that have just been born, it's really important, because mom can just kind of hopefully vacuum them up like a bunch of little fat popsicles on the ice and add some calories pretty quick there. And cubs are mostly nursing, of course, but they will right away, start trying seal and eating it and going for the fat and the meat and the blood. So, they are little carnivores as soon as they're born. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's neat stuff.
Do they give birth to twins, or are they cubs from different dads?
Yeah, both. So usually, if there's 2 cubs or more, it is the same father, but there have been cases where there's been different fathers. So when polar bears are mating, the male's tracking the female on the ice. He finds her, and he wants to stay with her for a week or two to protect her from other males. He wants to be the only one that mates with her, and he'll mate with her often. He's going to fight off other males. But, so say first male A mated and was, with this female for 5 days, and a bigger male came in and pushed him off the female. So now we have male B is bigger, male A is gone, male B starts mating with her while she's still in heat. It's possible that she'll have cubs by different fathers. So that's something we're still working out. And again, it's only recent DNA evidence that has shown what's going on with the paternity out here. We're finally figuring out what the dads are doing. It was a long time we had no idea, but technology is catching up, and it's some really cool stuff with the genetic work on polar bears. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, oh, that's perfect. So is there any DNA research being done, and what type? Do you identify family units with DNA? Yeah, so one of the big DNA projects right now is, just looking at the genotypes of all the bears out here. So research has been going on for over 3 decades, and we've been collecting samples for over 3 decades, whether that's of hair or other things. And those samples sit, they're preserved for a long time, and we might not know what to do with them right away, but now we can go back and do the genetics of those bears. And one of the big things is, again, who's mating with who? Are there any kind of special genes? Where are the bears more diverse? In Hudson Bay, there's 3 populations. There's these bears, Western Hudson Bay, Fox Basin in the north, and the Southern Hudson Bay bears in the south, closer to Ontario. And we really didn't know how often they're intermixing. So are the Western Hudson Bay bears only really, mating with males over here? Because, of course, the boundaries we draw as humans mean nothing to the polar bears. We've drawn them to help us manage them. Yeah. And so we're kind of looking at, do we need to redraw them? What are the genetics telling us? And there's, a couple places in the Arctic there seems to be more intermingling. In other places there's a bit more genetic flow. We're finding out what males are fathering the cubs out here. We're going to be able to ask a lot more great questions in the coming years as the genetic work gets bigger, faster, cheaper. Yeah, it's really cool stuff.
It is cool stuff.
Okay, question about lemmings, and I'm not going to be able to answer this properly.
Unless it is, what is the most attractive lemming in all of the Arctic?
The Canadian lemming.
I heard it was the Norwegian lemming, but...
we're partial to the Canadian lemmings. Apparently this is I
did see a picture of a Norwegian lemming, and
it was quite pretty?
It was a very pretty lemming.
You have to show me that. Maybe I'll reserve my judgment until I really have all the facts in front of me.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm sure. How many types of lemmings are there?
That is a good question.
All right.
I don't know.
We're going to have to contact Lemmings International and ask them some questions
Definitely.
about lemmings. So is it true the lemmings warming up the tundra because of the warm air in the tunnels? Great question. I really don't know. I feel like that would be a very minor point. I mean, there's a lot of lemmings out here. The tundra is really warming up because of mostly atmospheric temperature that's then thawing the permafrost. That seems to be the driving force. I'm sure, a ton of little lemmings digging holes in the tundra doesn't help its stability, but I'm not sure if that's nearly enough compared to this overall warming we're seeing in the atmosphere. Anyway, but, cool question. I would like to... We've all been more inspired, I think, to learn more about lemmings this week after seeing them. Like, it's been really cool. Yeah.
Also, we're seeing a lot of lemmings over in the kelp piles near the coast. And that's where a lot of the footage we've seen so far is where they're taking stuff. And those kelp piles are warm by themselves. As that kelp is breaking down, it's kind of like a compost pile, and it's building heat down in there.
Yeah,
and so toasty. It must be toasty warm. Yeah. At least it's warmer than the air for sure.
Yeah.
We have to be careful of that with the tundra buggies. If we actually drive into a kelp pile, even when it's freezing cold in the middle of winter here, it will just be a mud hole at the bottom of that thing because none of that stuff is frozen. So I don't think the lemmings are warming up the kelp piles, as much as the kelp pile is, as it breaks down, warming up the kelp pile.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Ugh, neat stuff. This kelp is cool. You'll see the bears sleeping in it and eating it. It's a neat aspect out here.
Yeah, totally.
It's super cool. How close is the denning area? It's a little ways away. There's a den that's not too far from here, but it's still, it's a 20-minute helicopter ride. Might be one of the closest. So Wapusk National Park, where the Cape Cans are, is one of the best denning areas in the world. So they don't den right around the Cape Cans. We actually need to go south and inland for that. And maybe I can post a map later on explore.org to show people. But the bears come into the interior and kind of midway and south around the Wapas National Park area, quite a bit around the Owl River and Broad River. So maybe, 80, 100 kilometers south of us from here. I'll try to pull up a map. It'll help visually if you can see that. So it's a ways from here, but, it's pretty neat. They den in the peat quite a bit around this area. They might be in riverbanks. It's a different type of denning than a lot of other areas in the Arctic where they'll dig into snow and ice. So it's pretty special. And there's even some areas that have like a really high concentration of dens. And we know that dens get reused. We're not super sure yet if the same bears come back to the same dens every year or whether the cubs come back and den in the same dens they grew up in. But we know that dens get reused and reused and reused, which is pretty neat stuff. So yeah, the denning work is so interesting. And of course, that's another thing as the permafrost is thawing around here. Those dens in some areas are becoming more unstable. And so the bears need to make sure that they've got a safe and secure den to have their cubs in. All right. Are we working with the Isomer Whisker Prints program? Yeah. No, they're great. I saw a talk by the students that did the isomer whisker printing last year in Winnipeg, and they do some really cool stuff. I know it's Jane Waterman that runs that, and they work out at the study center as well. So we don't work directly with them, but we think it's fantastic that they're coming up with different ways that maybe we can identify polar bears out here non-invasively. And
years ago, we did. We used to work with them, and that was one of the original reasons for having the cameras out at Cape Churchill.
Cool.
They were monitoring the streams down there before they were really going live to the internet. This is probably 12 years ago or so now, so
nice.
quite a long time ago. I'm not sure it worked really well with those cameras just because the resolution was so low.
Yeah, you probably need to get a really nice clear zoom in, which...
I think so.
Yeah.
And then we were doing some photographs from here as well, but in the recent years we haven't worked too much with the program.
I know they've got a great poster out at the Churchill Northern Study Center that I've looked at. And it's cool that they bring students in from all over to work on it. It's a really neat program for young people that are learning about this stuff. So so that's pretty neat. And maybe we could find out more about that later. So I'm going to scroll up because we had other questions. Yeah, you guys keep plunking your questions in. And otherwise, there was something I wanted to show. What else? So BJ's got this program on his computer. That's what I keep looking at. There's all these like little clips we can play. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what the difference between Alaska and Svalbard was doing the den cams, because actually, it would be cool. Now I'm just piling things on you to talk about, but that mom that denned in like under the bridge or something this year, what was that about? That was so interesting.
Yeah, so Alaska again is where we've done this denning work. Here's another clip from there, and let's see, I got another one there. So anyways, we had a female, for whatever reason, decide that denning next to a very busy road underneath a very busy bridge, that was going to be a good idea. So we had a female dig in, I think it was late November, early December, and we got a call and someone said, hey, there's some polar bear tracks here and we think there's a den, would you be able to come up and monitor it? So we did end up putting some equipment there. Jeff York from our team went up to go install that stuff, and sure enough, early March, maybe even late March, early April, I think is when it was. Mom came out, and cub was healthy, and they took off for the sea ice.
Nice.
And so it's just kind of interesting that some polar bears would like to den way away from people in the middle of nowhere, and for whatever reason, this female thought next to a busy road in an oil field, that would be a great place.
This looks good.
Yeah. She dug in. So.
Yeah.
I wish I could. I don't actually have any of that footage here.
Oh,
I'm gonna have
worries.
to try to pull that up. Maybe we can talk about that in another webcast.
Yeah, for sure. We'll pull it up for later.
Because it's the wildest thing. I mean, mom is actually leaning on one of the big pieces of conduit on the bridge and kind of getting a good look around. So that's
so crazy. Just like people, they have different preferences.
Yeah,
and again, getting at more like of the genetic variability, like those having different strategies is so important in the animal world. But it's really neat to see it play out over time. So the radio's going here. Sorry about that. Guys are working out on the tundra here. But yeah, we see that too, even with our tracking information. So you can go online to Polar Bears International's Bear Tracker. It's a little outdated right now. We're working on updating it, but you get the idea. It's pretty cool. You can track different females over a year or two, and you just see they're all kind of doing different things. You know, they're all working with the same sea ice and conditions, but they have different strategies, whether that's going way up north, traveling huge distances, traveling small distances. They're doing their own thing, and it's amazing to try to figure out, you know, the common threads, and it's difficult, but of course it tends to be where the seals are is where they're going. They're not going to go anywhere they can't hunt seals. And maybe it's things their mom taught them, and you know, they teach their cubs, and most of them end up in almost the same place every year too, though. These bears have what we call site fidelity, and that means they like coming back to the same spot every year. No matter how far they travel over the winter, we often find them in the same areas every summer, so that's pretty cool.
So there might be generations of polar bears that will be born underneath that bridge in northern
Can you
Alaska.
imagine?
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it'll just, that Alaska, those workers will just know, like, oh, it's, you know, checking their watch, it's almost time for her to be back, or the cubs. That's pretty cool.
You know, we had the opportunity to go dig through that den after, of course, it was confirmed to be empty. We crawled through the den, and this female was, she was industrious, to say the least. I think, I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I think she had made almost like a triangle-shaped structure underneath the snow, so a huge snow pile. She dug one way, and then she dug another way, and I think she connected those two. So it was like one big triangle, and it was 16 feet from one entrance to another on one leg of the triangle, kind of the base. And then it was 18 feet from one to the other.
Cow.
I mean, these tunnels were huge. They were super long.
It's like a little underground condo.
It was an underground condo for sure. I think she maybe had some pretty annoying kids, and she put some of them at one end. She went down to the other.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, exactly. If you had to be stuck in a snow hole. It is cool crawling around in there. You see big claw marks from where Mom has been digging, but you can also see where the little cubs have been digging as well. So little tiny claw marks on the walls. And lots of frozen hair. The hair all gets frozen to the top of the snow dens, and kind of dangles down like little stalactites. So it's a neat thing to be crawling through after it's empty.
Right. Does it smell at all?
It doesn't smell. They don't. Yeah. I mean, it's maybe a little musty.
Yeah.
You know, just a little musty, but it's really not bad. There's no feces. There's no urine in there.
Clean.
It's clean snow hole.
Neat stuff. I like the snow hole thing. I'll use that instead of den sometimes now. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it looks like we don't have too many more questions coming in, so we can wrap up. But, you know, we're around all day. We're just chilling on Buggy One. We're going to have some lunch. We're going to keep an eye on the comment board and on Facebook. And if we see anything cool, we're going to... I say we. BJ is going to drive us to it. Yeah, we'll jump on the cam.
And we'll jump on the... we can do the voiceover over the cam. So.
Yeah, we can plug our mics in pretty easy anytime.
Yeah, so if we see anything neat, we'll definitely jump back on and talk about what's happening.
Yeah, and so we are around, you know, for the next few weeks, and next week is Polar Bear Week. So check us out. We're going to be doing more casual stuff. We're available all the time to answer questions, and on our website there's different ways you can get involved and find out what we're doing for Polar Bear Week, and we can post stuff in the comments too. So yeah, thank you for your questions today.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
We look forward to talking to you more today or later this week. But we're going to go eat some lunch.
Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.